morning, did the government waive off the anti-corruption clause in the Rafale deal? Well, that's the latest from a report in the Hindu newspaper today. According to the report, now the euro 7.87 billion Rafale deal between India and France involved major and unprecedented concessions from the Indian government, with critical provisions from anti-corruption penalties dropped, says before just days before the signing of the intergovernmental agreement, that's the IGA. According to the report, the high-level political intervention meant that standard defence procurement procedure clauses on penalty for use of undue influence, agents, agency, commission and access to company accounts of Dassault Aviation and MBDA France were dropped by the Indian government in the supply protocols. On Friday, there was an uproar, remember, in the parliament over the report in Hindu, and the defence ministry said that the opposition is flogging a dead horse. In fact, the first reaction coming in from this is from the Congress party, and this is former finance minister P. Chidambaram, who has come out to tweet. He says the Rafale deal is unravelling faster than the government thought. First, it was a loading of the Indian specific enhancement costs on 36 aircraft instead of 126, giving a bonanza, he calls, to Dassault. Then it was a revelation that a parallel negotiation was being carried out by the PMO, undermining the efforts of the Indian negotiating team. Now it is revealed that the crucial changes were made to the clauses in the standard defence procurement procedure. No sovereign guarantee, no bank guarantee, no escrow account, yet a huge amount was paid as advance. No penalty clause for undue influence, no clause against agency commission, no clause for access to supplier's account, and Dassault goes on to laugh at the banks. In fact, we spoke with Ram just a little while ago from the Hindu to get a better understanding of the story. This is the latest bombshell on Rafale. Did the government waive off the anti-corruption clauses in the Rafale deal? Well, that's from the latest report by Hindu suggests. According to the report, the Hindu newspaper today has said that 7.87 billion euro Rafale deal between India and France involved major and unprecedented concessions from the Indian government, with critical provisions for anti-corruption penalties being dropped days before the signing of the intergovernmental agreement, that's the IGA as it's called. Now, according to the report, a high-level political intervention meant that the standard defence procurement procedure, DPP as it's called, the clauses there on penalty for use of undue influence, agents or agency, commission and access to the company accounts of Dassault Aviation and MBDA France were dropped by the Indian government in supply protocols. On Friday, there was an uproar, remember, in Parliament over this issue as well. And at that point, the question was that there was intervention by the Prime Minister. Now the latest report by a Hindu pointing out what exactly could that intervention have meant. We are joined by Ram of the Hindu to give us more perspective on this. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us this morning. I'm just going through the paper that is again been out in the Hindu this morning, and the document that you've put out, which clearly states that the Defence Acquisition Council, chaired by the then Defence Minister Manohar Parrikar, met in September 2016 and ratified and approved 8 changes in the IGA supply protocol for offset contracts and offset schedules. Just explain to our viewers what exactly does it mean when it comes to a contract of this size.
I think two highlights here are, one is the waiving or the dropping of the anti-corruption clauses, which, as you mentioned, are a standard part of defense procurement procedure. And why on earth would they drop this penalty for use of undue influence, agency commission, and access to the books of the companies involved? And don't forget, this is very important. Although it's an intergovernmental deal known as an IGA, intergovernmental agreement, so to be technically correct, this is in the supply protocols, and the supply protocols involve the two companies. So why on earth would they drop it? They've got to answer it. And the other is an issue of financial prudence, an escrow account, because as has been reported widely, Dassault, the manufacturer of Rafale, is under stress, financially under stress. They've had problems. And the financial experts in the Defense Ministry, and particularly the financial advisor, Mr. Mohanty, who has a high reputation for integrity, I think they emphasizes they fought it till the last, that have, they wanted a sovereign guarantee or a government guarantee or at least bank guarantees. This was turned down by the French. And then they said, have at least an escrow account. The money you're going to pay, let it go into an escrow account to be operated by the French government and to be released only with the concurrence of the Indian government, because that depends on performance by Dassault and the other company involved, which the weapons supplies the weapons. So this again connects with the earlier story of parallel negotiations. Parallel negotiations, which the government has denied. And Mr. Mohan Kumar, who unfortunately he's been caught out, because at that time he strongly endorsed the note put up by the by a junior official, but which reflected the thinking within the Defense Ministry, and they got it right, I think. And
I just want to interrupt for a minute, Mr. Ram, and I just want to, bring the focus to what today's story is all about. You talk about 8 significant changes being brought to the entire agreement between the two countries. Now, one of the most significant change in this is the one where you say it's pointed by Vice Admiral Ajit Kumar, who says that non-inclusion of standard DPP clauses related to penalty of undue influence, agents, agency commission, and access to company accounts in the supply protocols. You were talking about the correlation with the earlier story, which clearly said that there was an intervention or a parallel negotiation of sorts being carried out by the Prime Minister's office. How do we see the two stories, connect the dots and see it at one go now?
Yeah, it only proves there were parallel negotiations, and also conducted behind the backs of the Indian negotiating team. And it completely undermined the negotiating position, correctly taken by many of the members of the Indian negotiating team, in my opinion. So this was not only parallel, but it was non-transparent. It was done at a different level, in a different realm, if you like, and it completely undercut it. So what's this for? That's the question. What's the story behind? Why did they drop the anti-corruption provisions, which are standard, and why did they not accept the proposal put forward very clearly, that we reproduced that document also by Mr. Mohanty on an escrow account? Makes no sense to me on the face of it. So the anti-corruption, dropping of the anti-corruption clauses is the immediate point, is the bigger point right now, politically at least speaking.
That's
because
right.
This is in the supply protocols. I underline it. They're dealing with, it's an intergovernmental agreement, but this is with vis-a-vis the two companies. So did they have commission agents? Was undue influence exerted on them for anything? I don't want to speculate, but those questions arise naturally or immediately from what we have put out.
Mr. Ram, before I let you go, just want to get an understanding. You keep underlining the supply protocol in all of this. What exactly is the significance of this? Does this mean that rates, etc., the pricing, etc., that would remain under wraps? Or what exactly are we seeing when we see changes being made in the agreement?
The changes were made at the last minute. So the question would arise, on behalf of whom? What is the interest behind the changes? For whom are they doing it? Is it for the Indian Air Force or for somebody else? Why would the Indian Air Force benefit from these anti-corruption clauses being dropped, or no escrow account? Because the French obviously knew that. In fact, it's in one of the documents that because of the parallel negotiations behind our backs, the French will take advantage and undermine, and this will go against the interests of India. That's put down in black and white in that note we published earlier. But the supply protocol is with the two companies. So why could not India incorporate, the government of India incorporate the anti-corruption clauses in the agreement? in the IGA, especially considering that the supply protocols, these are very specific things.
All right, Mr. Ram, thank you so much for bringing us your perspective on this.